Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu has presented the 2022-23 Budget Vote 19 for her department in Parliament. The department's vote is the government's third largest budget, and it constitutes 13.1% of the government's overall estimated budget. The budget allocation is a total of 257 billion rand. For more on this, I'm joined by the Acting Director General for Social Development, Linton Mchunu. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. There are many contributing factors to South Africa's dire social atmosphere. I mean, the cost of basic food items, energy sources rising, the economy, COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine conflict. How much hope do you believe that this budget gives to South Africans who desperately rely on it?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Paul, to do the interview with you. And indeed, we've delivered our budget vote today, which is a clear demonstration of our commitment to the public, and particularly with regards to our priority areas as a department within the broader government priority program, which is, of course, the National Development Plan. You're quite right. There are a number of challenges that we're facing, not just as a country, but globally. And I think that part of what we are trying to do is to be able to respond to that, particularly in the areas of poverty, and providing some level of support to people, whether it be through grants or whether it be through some of our other programs. So this is a budget that is talking to the current space that we are in as a country and as a globe on the whole. And I think that it certainly would be able to respond to some of the challenges, particularly the social ills that we face as a country. Thank you.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the breakdown of this budget and where the bulk of it is going in terms of allocation.
Yeah, thanks. So we receive about 257 billion rands this year, which is amongst the largest, part of the largest allocations to government departments. Of course, this is about 13.1% of government's overall allocation, which is totaling around 1.95 trillion rands. And the bulk of the budget that we have goes towards social grants through SASSA, and of course, particularly with the new 350 rand grant, which is now in its third iteration. About 44 billion of that would go to that, and of course, the additional bulk will go towards the other ordinary grants. And there's some allocation that is provided to the National Development Agency for programs, particularly working with NGOs and civil society organizations. And some of that also comes to the department in terms of the other priority programs that we have as it relates to food and nutrition, as it relates to areas around gender-based violence and femicide, and of course a number of other programs that touch on youth development, as well as persons with disabilities and older persons. So it cuts through a number of these, but as you correctly indicated, the bulk goes towards social grants.
Now, as you make mention of the 350 rand grant, we know that over the recent months, it's upset a lot of South Africans after more recently that surprise change that saw the grant regulations being little tightened, as announced by the President. By the end of last month, 8.1 million had already signed up for that 350 rand grant. But the budget, according to your new breakdown, caters for 10.5 million applicants as opposed to the 18 million. Where are you standing with the numbers as we speak?
So I think we've gotten close to just over 10 million applications already from April onwards, and you're quite right. The allocation is for about 10.9 million people. You see, the challenge is that we are given a certain amount of money which we needed to work within, and because of the tight fiscal space that we're in, so we needed to tighten up the criteria, rules, and regulations around the grant, so that we are able to support more people onto this 350 grant. So a number of people have already applied. We have not paid yet for April, and we're in the process of doing verifications for all these people who have applied. It's going to be much stricter because we're looking at different mechanisms now, in terms of checking with the banks and so on and so forth. So we're really appealing to people who really only and desperately need the grant to apply for the grants, and for people who are involved in fraudulent activities and so on to really desist from doing that, because this money needs to go to people who are in desperate need of it. We've also found that when we did the verification, we found just last week that about 45,000 people who applied, when we matched their ID numbers, are actually people who have deceased from August last year already. We know that their public servants were also making applications towards the grants and so on. So we're really just trying to ensure that only the people who desperately need the grants would be able to apply for it. And we're going to be extremely strict in terms of the criteria when it relates to this particular grant, because of the tight fiscal space that we have to maneuver.
Now, as you work through the challenges and as your department monitors the threshold, you had previously said you'd revise it based on uptake and availability of budget. What is that likelihood as the numbers stand? I mean, you make mention of just over 10 million, and you had set you'd prioritize 10.5 million as opposed to the 18 million. What does that now look like?
Yeah, so you must remember that the people who are applying now are essentially the same people who had applied for the second iteration of the grant. And, they would have ordinarily reapplied, because we're treating it as a new grant, a new application rather, every month, because we have to go into the database and the data sets to check whether people are now working or whether their conditions have changed or not. And so we are pretty confident that with the new regulations that we have, we would be able to probably reduce those numbers that we've received to only really focus on those who need it. And one of the other things that we are doing is that we are requesting recipients to indicate on their application when they apply whether they are willing to take a job opportunities that pop up in between. No, they're not willing to take a job, then we're going to automatically decline those people, because I think it's important that we try and get people into jobs, and so
okay.
the grant is really to assist those who are in great need.
And thank you for your time. Yeah, your line not sounding too good towards the end. Thank you for your time, Acting Director General for Social Development, Linton Mchunu, speaking to the budget allocation for the 2022-23 financial year.